You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flores Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
And good evening. Welcome, folks. Thank you for coming into another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. Good of you to join us tonight. Last week we had, I thought, a real good response. We looked at some old TV shows, and for last week and this week, too, I probably spent 5 or 6 hours poring over old videos and old pictures of old TV shows, and it's been a kick, I got to tell you. I had a ball. Some of these old TV shows I had forgotten all about. Some I'd never heard of, so we're going to show you some. I wish I could show you some clips, and I can't do that. We're not set up here to do that yet. Maybe in the future we can, but right now we can't show video clips. But I will be able to show you some pictures of maybe some screenshots and different things, images from some TV shows roughly from the 1960s, some late 50s into the early 60s. But before we get into that, I just wanted to kind of put a couple words out. By the way, if you're watching, today is Wednesday, October the 7th. We are live. And so if you're watching any other time, it's not live. If it's not Wednesday, October the 7th. I've had, probably a half a dozen people, some call in on the show last week, some before the week before that, in fact, and I had a couple of folks this week, since the last show anyway, to mention again Mr. Ray Thompson. And so I just want to let you know I have reached out to the family of Ray Thompson, had a nice phone conversation, in fact, with the oldest son, Bubba. And the family is actually getting together. They're scattered all over the countryside, and they're getting together this coming weekend, in fact. And so what we're hoping will happen, and it may not happen in time for next week's show, but I spent a good amount of time talking with Bubba on the phone a couple nights ago. And he's going to get with his older sister, his 2 younger sisters, and his younger brother, and going to try to compile some stories and some pictures, hopefully, of Mr. Thompson. And we're going to do a segment on his life. Several of you have expressed interest, as I said earlier, about hearing about his life. And frankly, I knew the whole family. And in fact, Ray Thompson was a wonderful man, and I think his life was actually very interesting. And so, as I said, it may not be next week, but we are working on a show that will highlight some of the more interesting aspects of Ray Thompson's life, including his time in radio and television, even a short stint in the movie industry. So stay tuned. Like I said, it may be next week, it may not. We've got a lot we're trying to put together. So if it doesn't happen next Wednesday, it'll probably be the week after that. But we are working on that. I've also been asked by a couple of folks about the possibility of going around and seeing some of these old houses, particularly the ones that are currently buried in the woods. We talked about one a couple of weeks ago on the show that's up out Taylor Store Road, out past Sandy Cross, out that way. And I rode out there, and I think I found the house, but it was so grown up, and so you just couldn't really even get to it. You could barely see it. And so I thought what I would try to do, once the cold weather gets in here for sure, and all the green is gone and all the underbrush dies off, where we can get in there and get to some of these houses. There's actually a couple more I'd like to get to too, but I thought I maybe would try to put together like a little tour. And so if any of you would be interested in trying to become involved in something like that, we'll pick, 4 or 5, maybe half a dozen houses on a Saturday, and we'll meet up somewhere in a parking lot, and then we'll ride around all these houses. I've been very fortunate to have been invited to see some of these houses on the inside, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, so I'm not going to call any names now, but there's a possibility we might get a little tour of some of these houses that we've highlighted on the show in the past, and I'm trying to get permission from everyone to let us do that. So that's something just to keep in mind. And hopefully we'll be able to do something like that on a regular basis. I think it's something a lot of the viewers would enjoy, going and visit some of these old houses, particularly some of the ones that have been around from the late 1700s, early 1800s. And there's more than you might think around Rocky Mount. We've got some really, really old houses, and some of them are still inhabited, and some of them are still being lived in on a regular basis. Some, of course, are in pretty bad shape. So anyway, we'll play that by ear. But if you'd like to be involved in something like that, just let me know. From time to time, I give out my email address, and I haven't done it in a while, so let me give you that for anyone interested in emailing me. My email address is Randy, that's R-A-N-D-Y, and the letters are C as in Charlie, S as in Sam, O as in Oscar, R as in Romeo, and M as in Mike. And that's just an abbreviation for Computer Services of Rocky Mount. That's my company. I do computer and IT network support work. So it's randy@csorm.com. And if you want to email me with an idea for a show, if you've got some pictures you want to share with me, feel free to email me. You can also call me on my cell phone. 252-883-1123 is my cell number. And of course, you can always call the show. 252-407-1111 is our number here at the station during the time the show was on. So, getting that out of the way, Lee, let's jump right into the pictures. Most of these are all, for the most part, either a TV show screenshots. I started with this first one because this just made me smile. I actually had this TV one time many years ago. This is the Sony Trinitron. And in fact, it was one of the, if not the first, one of the first color television sets. Mine I acquired second, third, perhaps fourth hand. It was very well used when I got mine. But, and I think this was probably a 13-inch screen here back when they still made 13-inch televisions. And Sony made this in a couple of different, I think it was a 13, I want to say I had a 17 at one time too. 19 was the biggest I remember seeing, and then of course you got into what they call the console TV sets. But this thing had, I think, 11 channels, and when cable TV came out, of course, you had to put the channel selector on channel 3 and then let the cable box take over from there. And but anyway, I hadn't seen one of these in a long time, and I ran across this picture and I said, well, that's neat. I just had to share that one. Okay, so these first, I don't know, maybe a dozen shows are ones that were in a category I found on the internet. It said forgotten syndicated shows of the 1960s. And I got to say, the vast majority of these shows I had never heard of. And this is one called The Beat. And I'll read you a little bit about what I found out about the show called The Beat. It says in 1965, when shows like Shindig, Chivalry, Hullabaloo, and Hollywood A Go-Go delivered hip live acts to hungry teens, The Beat came around a year later, hosted by Nashville-based disc jockey Bill Hoss Allen, featuring a hot house band led by Clarence Gatemouth Brown. This get down leaned a little more toward blues and soul, showcasing talents like Joe Tex, Etta James, and Otis Redding. So this show actually came out in 1966, and it was kind of a precursor to shows like Dick Clark's American Bandstand and Soul Train and other shows that came later on in the 60s and then into the 70s. But this is one that I couldn't say I remembered. It was called The Beat, and as I said, it came out in 1966. And I don't recall ever seeing a rerun of this show either. So it was in syndication for a while, but I don't know when the last time it aired. But anyway, all right, let's go to the next one then. This next show, and again, this is another one that I really can't say I remember. It was called Blue Angels. And as you might guess, you can see the aircraft there. For those that may not be aware, the Navy's precision flying team is known as the Blue Angels, has been for many years. And so this show was a takeoff on the Navy Blue Angels flying precision flying team. And the write-up I found says, long before Top Gun, pilots swooshed across the screen on Blue Angels, stories about the aerial aces of the United States Navy. The show is perhaps most notable for featuring some early work of Burt Reynolds, who turned up in a couple of episodes. And there's a theme there that you'll hear repeated, and I was amazed at how many times I ran across Burt Reynolds' name in some of these old TV shows, some of which he was a very young man, obviously, and unknown, I guess would be a better way to say it. Certainly a young man, but very much unknown in some of these shows. And he got his start in television, obviously, and then made the jump to movies in later years and became an absolute superstar. But Burt Reynolds was in the show called Blue Angels, and I'm not exactly sure, but I think this show aired somewhere around 1964, 65, somewhere along in there. Okay, Lee, let's go to the next show then. And this, keep in mind now, these are all shows that were, at least these first, I think there's a dozen of them that were, the title of the page said Forgotten Syndicated TV Shows of the 1960s. These two fellows here were on the TV show called The Brothers Brannigan. The Brothers Brannigan. Sibling detectives Mike and Bob Brannigan, who were actually played by Mark Roberts and Stephen Dunn, pictured here, solved cases around Phoenix, Arizona in this cheapy mystery series. It did give Marion Ross, the future Miss Cunningham of Happy Days, some early work in 2 episodes. Oh, and Burt Reynolds also starred. He built his resume in syndication. So again, we've got an old TV show. Some of these had a date when they were first aired, and some of them did not. This one did not, but I seem to recall hearing something about this show in later years, and it was sometime in the early 1960s too, 64, 65 perhaps. But it was called the Brannigan Brothers. So, and by the way, you know, if any of you have any thoughts or memories about any of these shows, feel free to give us a call. 407-1111 is our number. We're taking calls tonight on these shows, and this is just you know, I look back at these old TV shows, and I just can't help but think about how much has changed in the realm of television entertainment in the last 40, 50 years. You know, maybe we were a kinder, gentler nation back in those days, I'm not sure. But certainly the TV shows, the words like wholesome and, you know, family-oriented and just really all-around good quality television programming seemed to be the theme. It was a much more, I don't know if you want to call it prudish or not, but certainly a much more conservative view on what was considered to be acceptable television and acceptable entertainment. Very rarely did you ever hear anything remotely resembling profanity or obscenities of any kind. And it was just a really neat, as I said, when I was going back through these, I actually did get a chance to watch some clips when I was doing the research for the night show. And you just have to smile watching some of these old shows. The acting wasn't necessarily great. That's a given. These weren't necessarily great actors. As I said, a lot of them were just getting their start in television. And so they were learning their craft and learning as they went along in many cases. But the content, I guess you'd say, of the programming overall was just a much more wholesome, much more family-friendly content than what we're seeing in who many TV shows today, in my humble opinion. Okay, Lee, let's go to the next one then. This next show, this is one I can't say I remember hearing of. It was called Coronado 9. And the little write-up I saw on this show said, on the heels of hip crime show 77 Sunset Strip and Surfside 6 came a show called Coronado 9, a detective series set in the San Diego suburbs. Former stuntman and cowboy movie star Rod Cameron headlined this production, playing a former Navy intelligence man turned private eye. So, again, these are all from the 1960s. And this is one that was in this list of quote-unquote forgotten syndicated TV shows. I don't know if any of you remember any of these shows. If you don't, it's okay. But if you do and you want to share a memory, give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. This next show is one I do remember and have some fond memories of watching this. And it actually started out on radio. In 1930, Death Valley Days premiered as a radio program. In 1952, it made the leap to the small screen, where it stayed in syndication until 1970. It lasted 18 seasons, yet it's rarely mentioned in the same breath as Bonanza and Gunsmoke. When it comes to guest stars, it's hard to top the cast of of Death Valley Days. They had abbreviated that. Ronald Reagan hosted the anthology series from 1964 to 65, and yes, that's Ronald Reagan, the former president. He was in 21 episodes of Death Valley Days. Elsewhere, every rising star from James Caan to June Lockhart popped in. And the promotional photo here, this little write-up was under another picture, but it was talking about Tom Skerritt and Forrest Tucker were in this particular episode where I was reading this write-up here. But anyway, this was, of course, Death Valley Days, and it made its television debut in 1952. But it played into the 70s, and that's why it made this list. I was a little surprised that this show made a list of forgotten TV shows, because it was on the air for many, many years, and very popular show, and this is one that I do remember catching reruns of. Okay, Lee, I'll tell you what, bring it back to me. We've got there's a bunch of these, and so I want to try to get them all, but we're at a probably good enough point now as we're going to get to take our first commercial break for tonight. So if you want to get yourselves a snack, or maybe make that bathroom break, or go check on the dog with the kids fighting in the back room, go ahead and take care of a little business there, and come on back. We're going to look at some old TV shows and talk about them. We'll take your calls, and we'll be here when you come back. See you in just a minute.
Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Does sorting through Medicare make you feel like this? Don't worry, be happy. For any of your Medicare questions, just a simple call to your local team of licensed, customer-friendly agents can get you from here to there. Imagine getting the most out of your Medicare. Call 833-232-8880.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. If you're turning 65 or you're currently on Medicare, I can help you make the best decision for the Medicare plan that will suit your needs. Don't wait. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't rise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Flores Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
And we're back. Okay. During the break, I was doing some counting. There's actually 14 of these shows that were on that list of forgotten TV shows. There's a couple more than I thought it was. But as I said earlier, when I was going through these things, I just couldn't help but remember, even though a lot of these shows I didn't necessarily remember, the themes and the content and just a general, way these shows were produced and displayed and aired back into the early 60s and mid-60s. It's just such a dramatic change from what we have in television programming today. It's not too much of a stretch to consider some of the programming on television today to be vulgar, obscene, profane, and that's a shame that as a society, we've relaxed our morals to the point where some of stuff that really borders on trash, frankly, is being broadcast on television for the whole world to see, including kids. So that's my soapbox for the night. We'll get off of that and go back to the pictures. All right, Lee, let's go to the next one then. This next picture is one that, the next show, I should say. This is one I did remember seeing in rerun a couple of times. It was called Diver Dan, and it said a man in a diving suit, named Dan, obviously, you might have gathered, talks to fish. Well, a cast of puppet fish, including Finley Haddock and Gabby the Clam. That's the gist of this once cherished children's program, which was developed from a comic strip called Fish Tales. The short segments were syndicated out to stations and sometimes bundled into 30-minute programs. I don't remember who played the lead role in this, and I'm really not sure how long it ran. It didn't say in the little write-up that I read here. But I do seem to recall seeing this in a rerun as a small child. But apparently this didn't last very long, and sadly it's now relegated to the bin of history. So, all right, Lee, I'll tell you what, let's go to the next one then. If you're just tuning in, by the way, and you're a little confused about what you're seeing, these are all TV shows from the 1960s. Some started earlier, but for the most part, these are all 1960 shows. And this first dozen, or 14, I think it is, were all on a list that was referred to as forgotten TV shows from the 1960s. So the next one here is Everglades, of course. A guy named Ron Hayes starred as Constable Lincoln Vail, who zipped around the Florida Everglades in his airboat, solving crimes and preserving the land. Filmed on location in the Everglades, featuring local Seminole natives, Everglades found a following by being slotted next to Flipper in many markets. Nature lovers could get a double dose of Florida wildlife. Oh, and guess who guest starred? Florida raised Burt Reynolds, of course. And the picture you're seeing now, I think Lee jumped a little bit ahead of me there. This is Jim Backus. Some of you remember from the Gilligan's Isle TV show. He played the millionaire Thurston Howell. And since it's there, we'll go ahead and jump into that too. This was one I did not realize. Jim Backus had his own TV show. And it aired from 1960 to 61. This was a short run, but it was called, of course, the Jim Backus Show. And this actually was prior to the Gilligan's Island TV show, as I said earlier, that he played as the millionaire Thurston Howell. But he headlined his own syndicated sitcom from 60 to 61. It was sometimes referred to or titled as Hot Off the Wire, and it was a sitcom centered around a man running a struggling news wire service. So this was one I can't say I remembered, and I was a little surprised that Jim Backus had ever had his own TV show. I couldn't recall seeing him in but one other show besides Gilligan's Island, and I'm drawing a blank at the moment of what that was. But I remember him playing in one other show besides Gilligan's Island. So, all right, Lee, I'll tell you what, let's go to the next one then. And this next show, Johnny Midnight. Now, this is another one that I personally did not remember at all. It says veteran actor Edmund O'Brien had made his name as a wonderful character actor in classics like The Killers, White Heat, and DOA. In DOA, he got to show off his stuff as a lead actor, which perhaps led to his midlife renaissance as a lead in this nifty little TV series, Johnny Midnight. O'Brien played Johnny Midnight, a Manhattan detective lurking around his turf in the theater district. It was the product of Revue Studios, who had previously done wonderful work in the 1950s with Lee Marvin. So Johnny Midnight, like I said, was a show that was on this list of forgotten shows that aired in the 1960s. This is another one that I can't say I remembered, and it didn't last too long, I don't think, but they didn't really list the start and finish dates for this show. So, and I don't think it's even in reruns anymore. I've not seen it ever that I can recall. So, all right, Lee. This next one here is called Mack and Meyer for Hire. And again, this is one that I had never heard of. This actually, it says, well, I thought it gave us a date here, but it does not. But it says two regular Joes, Mack and Meyer, continually found themselves in slapstick situations as they picked up odd jobs. A bit of the Three Stooges here, a touch of Ralph and Norton on the Honeymooners, and the sitcom wasted no time in serving up cement mixers full of physical comedy. That was a little write-up about this show. I'm guessing, just looking at the cars in the background, this show would have been early 60s. But this is one that I had no clue about. I can't say I ever remember hearing anything about Mack and Meyer for Hire TV shows. So, and again, you know, I said at the top of the show, if any of you remember these shows and want to share a memory about them, if you remember a cast member or anything, give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. And we're just taking a trip back in time tonight. As I said, last week's show, I kind of got a kick out of looking at some of his old shows. And so when I was working on last week's show, I stumbled across some of these shows, at least mentions and references to these shows, and so I thought, well, we'll do one more week and we'll take a look back at some television programming. Next week we're going to go on to a different category altogether, but I did, since we kind of hit on it last week, I wanted to kind of follow up this week. And I know some of you are not much into TV and probably didn't watch TV at all in the 60s, but you know, for a large segment of the country, after World War II was over with and the soldiers came back from the war in the late 19 or mid 40s, 45, 46, and television started becoming available, it became a really instrumental part of a lot of homes. It replaced radio. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello there, you on the air?
Good evening. The photo you showed of Jim Backus
Yes, sir.
reminded me that he was the voice of the cartoon character, Mr. Magoo.
Yes, he was.
You would see that at the movie theaters right regularly.
And you know, I'd forgotten about that, but you're exactly right. I do remember that. Now, do you remember he was in another show besides Gilligan's Island too? And I'm drawing a blank. Do you remember any show he was in besides those two?
Well, I do not remember myself, but I think he was on several shows of different natures, but I'm not sure one much more longer than the Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, he's certainly known for Gilligan's Island, more so I think than his own TV show, the Jim Backus Show, and of course the cartoon voice. You're right, because I still see that on TV from time to time.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good night. Okay. All righty. So where are we at, Lee? We're at Mack and Meyer. Okay, so let's go to the next one then. And I think there's only a few more in this grouping. This show here, and this is a screen clip from the show, and the name of the show was Miami Undercover. And Lee, I don't know if you can zoom in or not and tell, this was not a really good picture, and I wish it was a better picture, frankly. It's hard to tell from this photograph, but there's a very famous athlete that played in this Miami Cover TV show, and I'll give you a minute to see if, Lee, if you can zoom in. Maybe somebody can recognize him. And if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not positive about this, but I think the gentleman on the right is the one that we're talking about here. If anybody thinks they know, give us a call, 407-1111. But Miami Undercover was the name of the show, and he partnered with, Henny Youngman on the Henny and okay, wait, we got a customer. I've got a caller. Hello there, you on the air?
Hello, Randy.
Hey, Harold, how you doing, buddy?
I'm not as old as Bob, but going back to the last subject, could he have been on Caddyshack?
Jim Backus?
As a big yacht owner or something like that in that Caddyshack movie?
You know, that's a possibility.
It seems that I remember a distinguished-looking guy with his country club being demoralized.
Yeah, I know he played, as the other caller said, he did play in some other shows. And so, to be honest with you, whether he played in Caddyshack or not, I don't know. That's certainly a possibility.
Movie, of course, but
right, exactly.
A lot of years he could have had a part in that.
And he may have. While you were talking, I just went and pulled up on the trusty smartphone here, cast of Caddyshack, which aired in 1980, came out in 1980, I should say. And I'm looking through here now, not seeing Jim Backus, but this may not be. I don't have a real good connection here on my smartphone, so
He was great on Gilligan's Island.
Oh, he was indeed. Did you remember seeing the Jim Backus show? Do you remember that TV show?
No, I don't.
I didn't either. And I'm scrolling through now. My phone just brought up the cast of Caddyshack. And I do not see him listed here. Now, it's possible that he did, they just neglected to put him on this list.
Sure, but I thought I remember someone of his nature.
Well, I'm sure he played in some movies, obviously, and other TV shows too, but obviously he was most known for Gilligan's Island, and like I said, I was not aware of that he had a TV show of his own.
But well, I struck out then. Let me know.
Well, welcome to my world. All right. Thanks, sir. All right. Okay. All right, Lee. So we're at the this is the Miami Undercover show here. Since nobody ventured to guess, the athlete, the world famous athlete that played in the Miami Undercover TV show was none other than Rocky Graziano, former heavyweight champion of the world. It says few men have ever thrown a punch as well as Rocky Graziano. The boxing legend slugged his way to the title of world middleweight champion. I think I said heavyweight, it was middleweight, excuse me, in the 1940s. After retiring from the sport, he transitioned to television, initially comedy, believe it or not. He partnered with Take My Wife, Please, comedian Henny Youngman for the Henny and Rocky show. Later, he turned action hero in this Miami set crime series. He played the strong man alongside P.I. Jeff Thompson, who was played by Lee Bowman. Pity the stuntman who might have accidentally caught one of his fists. But yeah, I did not, I can't say I remember this show. Miami Undercover was not one I recall. And just judging by the clothes and the attire, I would say this was probably mid to late 1960s maybe. And Rocky Graziano was, I'm not positive, but I think that was him on the right. I could be wrong. I can't say I remember seeing a picture of him during his time frame, but I think that was him on the right. So, okay, Lee, let's go then, excuse me, to the next picture. And this next show is one that was totally foreign to me. I'd never heard of a TV show called Ripcord, and this was the title screen from the Ripcord TV show. And the write-up I read said, skydiving is the ultimate daredevil act. There's a reason why little plastic paratroopers were the most popular Green Army men toys. The danger of the act is alluring. What if the ripcord doesn't work? Such tension was the basis of this entire series, Ripcord, which starred thrilling skydivers played by Larry Pennell, who actually, some of you remember, oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello there, you on the air?
In the photo, Rocky Graziano is the one on the left with the golf shirt, no tie.
He is. Oh, go back, Lee. Go back to that prior picture. So Rocky's the one on the left, you say?
Yes, he's the boxer, the one on the left.
Okay, and you know, now that I think about it, he was a middleweight champion, and that guy on the right looks too big to be a middleweight, so that makes perfect sense. It sure does.
But notice the size of Rocky's hands.
Yeah, he was a boxer. Okay, well, thanks for clarifying that. I really didn't know which one was which, and I was thinking boxer, big guy, but yeah, he was a middleweight, so it would make sense. He was a little bit smaller, so okay. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Have a good night. Okay, all right, Lee. So let's go back to where we were at the Ripcord there. So Ripcord, which starred thrilling skydivers played by Larry Pennell. Larry Pennell actually was the guy who played Dash Riprock of the Beverly Hillbillies. If you remember, Dash was a movie star, drove around in fancy cars. I think he and Ellie Mae had a little fling for a while there, or at least almost a fling anyway. But that guy that played Dash Riprock was Larry Pennell, and he was actually one of the skydivers on this show called Ripcord. And believe it or not, another actor in this show was a fellow named Ken Curtis. And if you remember from last week's show, Ken Curtis played Festus on Gunsmoke. So how about that? And then there was one more character who played on this show and got a lot of acclaim for his acting chops, none other than Burt Reynolds. So again, Burt Reynolds showed up on a TV show in the early mid-1960s as a fairly young, fairly inexperienced, fairly unknown actor, and certainly was earning his chops on the small screen before he made the jump to the big screen. So, all right, Lee, I'll tell you what then, let's go. We've got two more in this segment, and then we're going to jump to some more modern shows I think many more will recognize. This show here was called Sea Hunt, and you'll recognize right off Mr. Lloyd Bridges. I do remember seeing this show in reruns several times as a kid. It says Lloyd Bridges might be most familiar to younger generations as the glue-sniffing traffic control tower supervisor in Airplane, that crazy comedy Airplane movie. It says a couple decades earlier, he was the hunky leading man of Sea Hunt, which originally ran in syndication from 1959 to 1961, and then was cycled through. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello. Oh, I'm sorry, caller. I think you were calling in, and I didn't realize you were calling. Call back, and I'll let you in this time. I do apologize. That was my fault. I was reading and didn't realize the phone was winking at me over here. But anyway, it said Bridges played a former Navy frogman who seeks adventure aboard his boat, the Argonaut. So that was Lloyd Bridges. This show ran in syndication from 1959 to 1961, and then was in reruns for many years after that. And I remember watching this show as a kid. Haven't seen it played recently anywhere, so I'm not sure that it's even out there anymore. Maybe. Here we go. The caller's got. Hello there. You on the air?
Yeah, Jim Backus also did the voice of Mr. Magoo, the myopic Mr. Magoo, on the cartoons.
Right, he did. He sure did. We were talking earlier. In addition to that, I was thinking I remember him from another TV show besides Gilligan's Island, but I couldn't put my finger. Is there any shows you remember him in besides Gilligan's Island?
Yeah, there was one, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. I think it was My Girl Joan.
Okay.
Something that he was second to a leading lady on there.
I'll have to check into that. Okay. Well, you've given me something to go to digging on anyway, so I appreciate that. All right. Have a good night. Okay. All right. So Lisa, we got one more in this segment. So let's go ahead and bring this last one up. And this was the last one in this bunch that was referred to as forgotten shows from the 1960s. I'm sorry, yeah, forgotten syndicated shows from the 1960s. And this was a screenshot here of this show that was known as Shotgun Slade. As you can tell from the title and wardrobe, Shotgun Slade was a Western, but a rather unique one. While it was set in the Wild West, this fascinating hybrid was a detective series closer in tone to Peter Gunn with its jazzy score, the music background. Says Slade, who was played by Scott Brady, carried a unique modified gun like fellow cowboy heroes Lucas McCain and Josh Randall. Lucas McCain, of course, in the Chuck Connors, and Josh Randall was, of course, Steve McQueen. A little bit of history here. I'm actually named after the character that Steve McQueen played, Josh Randall, and my mother said she always intended for me to be called Steve after Steve McQueen, and instead one of my aunts picked up on the Randall, which is my middle name, and I became Randy. But anyway, it says Slade's piece was even wilder with a shotgun barrel welded to a rifle barrel. This show was all about hybrids. Somehow it did not feature Burt Reynolds, however. All right, Lee, I'll tell you what, bring it back to me. It's about time for our next commercial break. And when we come back, we've got some more modern shows that I'm sure many more of you will recognize and remember. Those last 14 were just ones I thought were neat. They fell in that category of forgotten shows, and many of them I think were forgotten many, many years ago. So, folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday in just a few minutes.
Sponsored by Flora's Glass and Mirror Company. Servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Does sorting through Medicare make you feel like this? Don't worry. Be happy. For any of your Medicare questions, just a simple call to your local team of licensed, customer-friendly agents can get you from here to there. Imagine getting the most out of your Medicare. Call 833-232-8880.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. If you're turning 65 or you're currently on Medicare, I can help you make the best decision for the Medicare plan that will suit your needs. Don't wait. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't rise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Floors Glass and Mirror Company, servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
And we're back. You know, during the break, I was just curious. I did a quick little search on my old smartphone here just to see what I could come up with Jim Backus. And as it turns out, he has a fairly impressive list of TV credits of shows and movies and things that he played in. And the caller that called in and said he mentioned another show that he thought he remembered seeing Jim Backus in. That show was called I Married Joan. And I don't know anything about the show. It must have, judging by the picture, it must have been sometime in the early 1950s, maybe mid-1950s. It must have been one of his earlier TV appearances. But just a few, he played in Trapper John M.D., had a couple credits, one episode in that. He played on The Love Boat. He played on Good Guys Wear Black, The Chips, that TV show with the California motorcycle riders, cops. Charlie's Angels, he had 3 appearances in Charlie's Angels. He was in Gunsmoke. I never knew that. He was in Gunsmoke. He was in Marcus Welby, M.D., the doctor show. He even played, had 4 appearances on the Brady Bunch. So, like I said, he had a fairly long, he was on I Dream of Jeannie, of all things. I never knew that either. Certainly the Mr. Magoo was mentioned earlier. The Wild Wild West, he was in that show. So Jim Backus probably, without a doubt, was more known for his appearances on Gilligan's Island, but he certainly had a long and storied career and probably a better actor than he got credit for. So, okay. All right, Lee, so let's jump back into the shows. These next dozen or so were just shows that I remember watching as a kid, and I'm sure some of you will too. This is actually a scene from a show called Lost in Space. And as a kid, for a long time, I thought I wanted to be an astronaut. And so anything that was related to space, I should say, was of interest to me. And this show was certainly this show, and Star Trek, and Buck Rogers, and those kinds of shows just really fascinated me, as I'm sure did a lot of young people. But this show was first created, it says originally aired between 1965 and 1968. The series was inspired by the 1812 novel The Swiss Family Robinson, and a published comic book published by Gold Key Comics titled Space Family Robinson. The series follows the adventures of the Robinsons, a pioneering family of space colonists who struggle to survive in the depths of space. The show ran for 83 episodes over 3 seasons. The first season had 29 hour-long episodes, was filmed in black and white, and the 54 hour-long episodes of seasons 2 and 3 were filmed in color. So this show started out being black and white, as you see here. And Lee, the next picture, if you go ahead and jump to the next picture, the second and third seasons were in color. And so, of course, there are some characters there. June Lockhart. I know some of these guys. Some of these people named, and I'm drawing a blank at the moment. They weren't identified in the write-up that I was reading there, at least not that one. They were identifying some of the other ones. But this show developed a really good following, kind of like Star Trek in many ways. A lot of folks love the show. I remember going to school and seeing kids bringing lunch boxes to school with pictures of all these characters and even the robot himself on the lunch boxes. I think there was a Lost in Space board game available at one time. There were all kind of toys and things, clothes, pajamas, all kind of household items for kids anyway, bedspread and those kind of things, decorations that were all themed around Lost in Space. So it had quite a following. All right, let's go to the next one then. And this is an oldie goldie that certainly is got its own place in history. The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet is a sitcom that aired first on ABC from 1952 until 1966, starring the real-life Nelson family. After a long run on radio, the show was brought to television, where it continued its success, running on both radio and TV for a couple of years. The series attracted large audiences, and although it was never a top 10 hit, it became synonymous with the 1950s ideal American family life. It is the longest-running live-action sitcom in U.S. television history. You know, at the top of the show, I used a couple of words describing television programming from the late 50s and early 60s, and certainly this show epitomizes phrases like wholesomeness and family values and just good quality programming that was, suitable for the entire family. And they always had a message or a theme or lesson to be taught. And, it was shows like this and the Andy Griffith Show and other shows that really, it's just a shame that we don't have that kind of programming available to us for television entertainment anymore. All right, Lee, let's go to the next one then. Speaking of great, wholesome, family-oriented TV shows, this is not the best picture. I do apologize. I just grabbed the first screenshot. But, of course, this is Leave It to Beaver. And I thought maybe I put the wrong one on my little flash drive I brought in, because I thought I had one, because Beaver's not even in this picture. Anyway, Leave It to Beaver is a sitcom about an inquisitive and often naive boy named Theodore the Beaver Cleaver and his adventures at home, in school, and around his suburban neighborhood. The show also starred Barbara Billingsley and Hugh Beaumont as Beaver's parents, June and Ward Cleaver, and Tony Dow as Beaver's brother Wally. And that's Wally right there, by the way, on the right. And it says the show attained an iconic status in the United States, with the Cleavers exemplifying the idolized suburban family of the mid-20th century. And again, this is just another one of those shows in that same genre of Ozzie and Harriet and the Andy Griffith Show, and shows that were just good, wholesome, quality programming for the whole family to watch. All right, Lee, let's go to the next show. And ever since I started watching television back in the 60s, there's been some shows that have really just immediately become favorites of mine. There you go. There's the other show, the other picture. I forgot I had this one. This is the entire cast, of course, of Leave It to Beaver. And there's Beaver at the bottom of your screen. There's Barbara Billingsley, on the left, Hugh Beaumont on the right, and Tony Dow, who played Wally in the background there. I forgot. I thought I had this picture. I just had two of them. Didn't realize I had two at the time. Okay, Lee, now let's go to the next picture. What I was saying was, there's a couple types of shows that really just grabbed my attention, and I've just always migrated, and certainly McHale's Navy was one of them. This show, I used to just cackle over this show. It was just, it was silly, it was slapstick, it was not very high on an educational level, but it was funny. And it was funny because of men like Ernest Borgnine there in the center, and Tim Conway on the left-hand side of your screen there. Gavin McLeod is just over the left shoulder of Ernest Borgnine. You remember him in later years on the Love Boat. But this show just cracked me up. And like I said, it wasn't very intellectually high level, so to speak. It wasn't designed to do anything but provide entertainment, and it did that in just greater bounds of entertainment, particularly for me. I'm sure some others feel the same way, but shows that like this and Hogan's Heroes and later years MASH, military themed shows. I'm an old military guy myself, and so those kind of shows really, to this day, I'll stop. If I'm channel surfing and run across one of these old military shows, I'll stop on a dime and watch it through the end. All right, Lee, let's go to the next show then. And this next one is one that I'm sure many of you remember. This was Rawhide, and this was Clint Eastwood starred in this show. And it aired on CBS from 1959 to 1965. Eric Fleming and Clint Eastwood were the stars of the show, of course. They were cattle herders in the American West. The hit series Rawhide is known for giving future star Clint Eastwood his start. The story revolves around a group of 20 riders looking after a herd of thousands of steers. With so many head of cattle to look after, the riders often ran into trouble, including lack of water, anthrax, wolves, ghost riders, and of course cattle rustlers. The show was popular for its exciting, often harsh adventures set in the stunning scenery of the American West. So, as the writer implied, this show, probably more so than any other, is credited for giving Clint Eastwood his big start in television. Of course, he parlayed that into a very long and illustrious career in movies and directing, and it was a good show. I mean, I've seen this show many times in reruns. I suspect you could probably still find it now on some of the like MeTV and some of these, and probably on things like Hulu and some of the other platforms that are out there that allow you to watch old programming. But this was what gave Clint Eastwood his start in the business. And going from a very serious show to something that was, again, borderline slapstick, silly, no intellectual content at all, but just funny outright, was a show called Green Acres. Lee, I think the next picture, if you'll pull that up for us, this show, there you go. And this show starred Eddie Albert and Eva Gabor as a couple who moved from New York to a country farm. It was produced by Filmways as a sister show to Petticoat Junction. Many of you remember Petticoat Junction. The series first broadcast on CBS September 15th of 1965, and it ran until April 27th of 1971. All episodes are filmed in color. This is another one of those shows, as I said, it didn't have a lot of intellectual content. It wasn't exactly designed to do much other than provide you a laugh and a snicker and maybe roll your eyes a bit, but it was funny. It was a funny show, and silly at times, yes, but certainly if you're just looking for something to entertain and not get too serious about, Green Acres would get you there. All right, Lee, let's go to the next picture then. I mentioned earlier about shows that really caught my attention over the years, and again, military-themed shows. This was F Troop, and this falls right in line with the McHale's Navy and Hogan's Heroes, and it was just slapstick, silly, funny, not a lot of serious content there, but certainly there were some really good actors on this show, including Don Rickles, Lee Merriweather, George Goebel, Julie Newmar, Milton Berle, Paul Lynn, Harvey Korman. This show launched a lot of careers too, and allowed a lot of people to get a start in television, and then parlay that into movies and other television careers. And again, there's nothing here really highbrow or very much requiring anything other than a need to smile and laugh and chuckle a bit. Okay, Lee, let's go on then. We've got a few more in this list, and we may not get through them all tonight. We'll do the best we can here. What teenage boy in the 1960s didn't fall in love the first time he saw I Dream of Jeannie? Barbara Eden was such a beautiful woman, and you know, her and the lady who played Elizabeth Montgomery, who played Bewitched, Both of those ladies, just absolutely gorgeous women, and I know for most teenage guys, that was all you needed to tune you into this show, was just to see either one of these two women, and especially Barbara Eden here. She was just, and her outfits here in this show was worth watching the show just to see what she was going to be wearing week after week. This show ran from 1965 to 1970, had a total of 139 episodes, and Major Nelson had to be one of the luckiest men on television during the run this show was on the air. All right, Lee, let's see if we can get these last couple in before we run slam out of time. I don't think we're going to be able to do it, though. I mentioned Petticoat Junction earlier. This was a great cast of funny people, too, and it ran from 63 to 70. We got two more, I think, Lee. Let's go ahead and knock these out real quick before we call it a night. We mentioned earlier Jim Backus, and certainly he will always be renowned for his time on Gilligan's Island. Here's the whole cast here. This show ran from 1964 to 1967. It starred Bob Denver, who played Gilligan. Alan Hale was a skipper. Jim Backus, of course, was a millionaire. Thurston Howell. Natalie Schaefer was his wife. Tina Louise, movie star. Russell Johnson was a professor. Dawn Wells was Mary Ann. Great show, great fun, great comedy. Two more, Lee. Let's knock them out real quick before we call it a night. The Dick Van Dyke Show, its own merits. This show was an absolute icon in television programming, too. Ran from 1961 to 1966. 158 total episodes spanning 5 seasons. Last one, Lee, I believe we're going to get it in if we got to close out for the night. Perry Mason, drama series, originally broadcast on 1957, ran to 1966. Title character played by Raymond Burr is a fictional Los Angeles criminal defense lawyer who originally appeared in detective fiction by Earl Stanley Gardner. There you go. We did do it, Lee. Bring it back to me. Whew, I wish we were going to get through all those. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I know not everybody's into old television shows, and I won't drag this out week after week. I just want to share those with you tonight. Next week, we got a whole other content, so don't go anywhere. Well, do go for now, but come back next week for more Wayback Wednesday. Have yourselves a great week. Take care of yourselves and be kind to each other, folks. We'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.
Sponsored by Floors Glass and Mirror Company. Servicing the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.